join us. I've got him here, Cellar Sam Wilkins in front of me, outside the Guild of Fine Food tasting rooms in Borough Market, where we are. Well, look at these lovely blue eyes, because they're full of cider, because we're tasting cider and we're halfway through the day. Sam, I mean, how's it? It's lovely to see you. This is our first real day back at school. And,
well, it's actually my second time back in town since the beginning of all of this, and it's really great to be tasting cider at the Guild of Fine Food. I can't quite believe I'm here, actually, if I'm honest. It's surreal, but we've tried some really lovely stuff, I think, today, and there's a few 3 stars floating around, I think.
Yeah, good. Well, and how's lockdown been for you? I mean, tell us a bit about who's been at home, help your family.
So I've been on furlough for much of this time from my day job at the cheese bar, which in a sense I've sort of seen as hopefully as an opportunity. I think I've been lucky enough to be at home with my family and spending time with them, 2 young kids, which has actually been wonderful. And with me and Nigel just speaking, something that wouldn't have happened otherwise, to be fair. And it's almost like I've had the opportunity as well to expand the reach of other things that I'm doing. So I'm getting to speak in my kind of side job, if you like, to lots of producers and farmers, and discovering more about the wonderful kind of regenerative farming movement and how that affects our food. And I guess looking at the opportunities for change post COVID-19, I think that's, the big question in every sector is, that didn't work. How can we do this better going forward? So I'm hoping, for all the tragedy and all the hardship, there are opportunities to be found out of all of this.
And just tell us about you were involved in the Great British Cheese Weekend, which was amazing. You did a taste with your family. I mean, how old are the children?
So I took a risk and decided we would do a cheese and wine for kids, so cheese and non-alcoholic drinks, particularly aimed at children. And my eldest, Maurice, he is 4 in a week, so little, and my youngest, Brannock, is only 18 months. So it was a risk. It could have gone horribly wrong, but actually with the behind the scenes able support and general mothering genius of my wife Catherine, the boys behaved themselves, and not only behaved themselves, really got stuck in and seemed to really enjoy it. So that was a lot of fun. And then did a cheese and cider tasting, and also a virtual farm tour with Johnny Crickmore of Fen Farm Dairy, who make Baron Bigod. I'm sure you know that.
Yeah, no, great. I mean, and also what's been very lucky for people like you and me is we've been able to shine a light on some of these cheese producers, the cheesemongers, but the producers particularly, who've been looking at stock shelves but with dwindling shelf life, and thinking, how am I going to get the route to market? You know, the pubs and restaurants are all closed.
Well, so I mean, the sort of statistic that swells around is that 80% overnight. So the 13th of March, that Friday the 13th, where the restaurants weren't actually shut at that point, but Boris Johnson came out and said, please don't go to restaurants and pubs. So effectively they shut. Phone calls going, and we don't need that order next week. Thanks, we don't need. So suddenly producers were losing 80% of their revenue overnight. And for hard cheese makers, I guess it was a real concern for what's coming down the road. For soft cheese makers, their rooms, their chillers were stacked with short shelf life products, and not just cheesemakers, but butchers and fishmongers and all sorts of people who primary businesses into trade, so into wholesale. But then the word that seems to come up a lot is pivot. So we're actually standing just next to the trains here in London Bridge, and we've got, I don't know where that's coming from, but it's making a bit of a racket.
We know it's going when we finish.
So it was really interesting to see how all these producers pivoted or adapted and came up with innovative ways of getting their product to market. And so I guess things like the e-sales and home delivery and all of that market has really boomed. It hasn't quite made up for the loss in sales to wholesale, but I certainly think it's an interesting avenue that a lot of producers will be reluctant to relinquish when things get back to whatever normal looks like going forwards, for sure.
Well, it's great to see you, and whatever the brave new cheese world will be, I don't know, but there's some marvellous people working in it.
Yes, I think that's what's become really clear. There's a lot of really brave, really courageous, innovative, passionate people out there, and that's what's going to save the industry, for sure.
Great to be able to support them, and by British, there's been some great,
absolutely right.
Look to ourselves. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Nigel.
Cellar Wilkins. There you go.
All right,
Cheers. Hurrah.
You.